Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning. Okay, and in today's session, we'll see about deployments. How can we create deployments and how can we roll back our deployments as well. Okay, and what are the different parameters what we can use inside the deployments. Okay, so let me share my screen. Yeah, hope you guys can see my screen, right? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we have three machines, right? So one master and two worker nodes. So let me start them. Downloads. Okay, so let me try to connect to my master. Still pending. Okay. I'm just checking whether I have all the nodes which are ready or not. Okay. So sudo su ifan and then kubectl get nodes. Okay. So one master and two worker nodes are up and running. So let me check if I have any running pods in my machine. Kubectl get pods. No. Okay. So if we have any services running, kubectl get spc. Okay, no services are running. So do we have any RC? No. Do we have any RS? No. Okay, everything is deleted. So we don't have any pods, any services, any replica controllers, or any replica sets. Okay. So we'll try to work on deployment. So what is deployment now? Any idea why are we using deployments in Kubernetes? Anand, any idea on deployments?
No,
Others, anyone else apart from Anand? I thought Anand will be knowing about the deployments, but unfortunately, he's not aware. Okay. So basically, so the deployments are used to deploy our application, upgrade our application means if suppose we have deployed the version called 1.0, okay, and we want to upgrade it to 1.1 or 1.2, right? So in that case, we can use the deployments, okay. And if suppose we want to roll back to the previous version, for example, I have deployed my application for on production environment that is 1.1, okay, and after deploying then I'm seeing some issues and I want to roll back it to the previous versions. In this case, we can use deployments, okay, and we can also pause our deployment as well as we can resume our deployments as well, okay. So what will happen again in deployments, we are whenever we are using deployments, right? So the but default we have two different deployment strategies in Kubernetes. Okay, one is recreate strategy and one is rolling update strategy. Okay, so in deployments as well, we have different type of deployments available in DevOps as well. Okay, so Kubernetes by default it will be using rolling update. Means what will happen, for example, this is what we have seen in Terraform as well. Okay, so for example, V1, so we have 5 different pods. Okay, so we have 5 different pods in our cluster. So when we are using rolling updates, that is the default deployment strategy in Kubernetes. So what will happen basically, for example, if you are using rolling updates, what will happen? So one will get deleted, and then you are one with the latest version, that is V2, for example. v2 will get created. Okay, and then after this, then one more will get deleted, and the newer version will get updated. I mean, a new pod with the latest version called v2 will get created. Okay, so what is happening? Slowly the older version is getting deleted and the newer version is getting created. So with the help of this strategy, there is no downtime, because whenever we are using rolling update strategy, a new one will get, I mean, the old one will get deleted and a new one will get created. So at least the user will be having 4 instances and a one new instance. So in this case, what is happening? There is no downtime for the business. Okay, so our application is up and running when we are using rolling update deployment strategy. Okay, so now apart from this rolling update, so what we have? So we have one more strategy called recreate deployment strategy in Kubernetes. Okay, so when we say recreate, so what will happen? For example, if I'm using recreate deployment strategy, so this will delete all the 5 pods. Okay, and then this will try to create all the 5 pods at the same point of time. Okay, it will delete all the 5 pods, older version, and it will create the newer version. So what is happening here? The moment the older versions are deleted and to spin up the newer version, it might take some minutes of time or at least some second of time. So what is happening here? There is some minimal downtime when we are using recreate deployment strategy. Okay, so we have 2 deployment strategies. One is rolling update and one is recreate. The most preferable or the default is rolling update only. So what is happening in rolling update? There is no downtime. When we are using recreate deployment strategy, then we might see some downtime. Okay, understood? Guys, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. So in deployment, so we'll see how we can create our deployments now. So if you check the hierarchy of our deployment, so what is happening here? So this will be our pod, for example. Okay, and to this pod we are going to configure our replica sets, and inside this we can find our deployments, I mean outside the replica set. Okay, so this will be the hierarchy. Means if suppose I'm creating any deployment, then inside the deployment we are going to configure the replica sets or replica controllers, and inside that RS or RC we are going to configure the details about our pod as well. So if I'm creating one deployment, then I'm also creating one replica set as well as one pod as well. So this will be the hierarchy for deployments. Okay, so no need to have different YAML files for pod. We were using one YAML file. For replica sets, we are using one YAML file, right? So in deployment case, so no need to maintain different YAML files. So one YAML file, and we are good with our replica sets or replica controllers as well as our pods. Okay. Now, as I have discussed, right, so we have 2 type of deployment, that is recreate and one is rolling update, and this is the default strategy what Kubernetes will be using. Okay, so let us see how can I create one deployment. Okay, so we can see the difference when we deployment name, command, blah blah blah. Okay, this is not required. Okay, so let me try to copy my deployment.yaml file. Okay, so where is our master server? So here, if I'll do kubectl explain deployments, then we can see the kind will be deployment and the version will be v1. Okay, so if you want to get more detail, then we can use -f recursive plus. So what will happen? Then we can see what are the different configurations we can assign. I mean, what should be the inside of metadata, what we can configure inside our specifications. Okay, so we can get all these details from the explain command. Okay, So now let me try to create one deployment. So vi deployment.yaml. Okay, and then let me paste this. There is no deployment file. Let me copy. Okay, so here if you'll see, this is our API version. This is our kind. In this case, kind will be deployment, and this is our metadata. Metadata basically related to our deployment, right? So here I am configuring the name as first deployment, and the label which is been configured to my deployment is test app. Okay, and then under specifications, here we are configuring the replicas. How many replicas needs to be created? 3. And again, what should be the expressions? If environment and the value should be prod, then it should be mapped to this replica set. Okay, and under template we are configuring the details related to our container. So this is my pod name. Okay, and this is something related to my container. Okay, the name of my container will be first container, and the image what I'm going to use is Nginx, and I'm passing one environment variable inside my container as well. Okay, so let me save this. And now how to run our deployment? Same command with the help of kubectl apply -f deployment.yaml file. Okay, so what happened? kubectl get pods. Here we can see 3 replicas has been created. Okay, if you want to get the details of your deployment, then we can use kubectl get deployments. Okay, sorry, describe deployment, then we can get the complete detail. Okay, describe deployments, then we can see replica set has been 3. This is our deployment. Okay, and if I'll scroll this up, okay, so here we can see that replicas has been created, and the strategy what it was using by default was rolling update. Means in my template I haven't configured what kind of strategy it needs to be used. Okay, but by default it has allocated the rolling update strategy only. Okay, so here we have few of the commands how to check the deployment and what are the how to describe the deployments as well. Okay, now here we can see something called minimum ready seconds, and here we are able to see something called rolling update strategy, 25% max unavailable, 25% max search. So what is these details? Okay, and also we have something called annotations, where we are able to see something, some revision has been created. So what do you mean by revision? So whenever we create any deployment, so what will happen is a new revision will get created. Means whenever, so we have one terminology called rollout. This is something what we might be hearing frequently when we join any company. So rollout means, any idea what is the rollout? So basically rollout means new version of application or a new release. Okay, so we generally term it as rollouts. Okay, so here whenever a new rollout is being happened or a new deployment is created, a revision has been created. So how to check this revision? Okay, here we can see the deployment status, the rollout status whenever we have executed our deployment. Okay, and then let me check. Okay, kubectl. Let me copy this. Okay, kubectl reload status, and then deployment. kubectl get deploy. I just want to know the deployment name. will get deployments. Okay, status deployment, and then the deployment name is first deployment. Okay, so here we can see the status. What the status is mentioning successfully rollout means once the changes has been reflected, then this deployment has been successfully done. There was no issues in terms of this deployment. Okay, so for example, now if you want to check the different history, okay, or let me do one thing. Let me show you the status is done. I want to check the history of my deployments. Okay, so okay, so here we have one command. So if I'll paste this rollout history deployment and then the deployment name, and if I'll hit enter here, we can see that one revision has been created, and here I am seeing some change pass as none. Basically, we haven't passed any message over there. Okay, so what is happening is whenever we are trying to create one deployment, then one new revision will get created. So why this revision is getting created? If suppose you want to roll back to the previous version, then in this case revisions are something which will help us to roll back. Okay, so now let me make changes to my deployment. Okay, deployment.yaml file. So here I just want to make the changes from Nginx to HTTPD for our identification purpose. So earlier the deployment was for Nginx, and now the deployment what I am trying to do is for HTTPD. So what will happen? A new rollout will get created. Okay, so if I'll save this, okay, not yet saved because I have entered the @ symbol. Okay, deployment. Okay, HTTPD, and if I'll save this, okay, now if I'll try to update this kubectl apply -f deployment.yaml. So what happened? Something has been changed. Again, if you take the status, we can see one deployment has been successfully rolled out. And if you take the revision history of the deployment by using rollout history, then we can see a new revision has been created. Okay, and if you describe the deployments again, kubectl describe deployment, first deployment. Then here we can see it has been scaled down. Okay, scale up, scale down, scale up, scale down has been done. Okay, the image what we are using currently is HTTP. Okay, so what happened? Why this rollout has been triggered? So we need to remember one thing is whenever we want to make any changes or deploy any new version, a new rollout will get created only if there is any change in the container specifications. If you are trying to change something over replicas and if you are expecting a new deployment, then that is not. Okay, deployment will get triggered or a rollout or a revision will get created only and only if you make the changes in the specifications of the containers only. If you are changing the name of the, I mean the image of the container or the new version, then only we can expect a new revision which will get created. Okay, so apart from this, rollouts will not get created. Okay, understood. So now let me do something else. Okay, so let me try to connect to my master machine again with another terminal. Okay, so we have two terminals now. Okay, so here you will see this kubectl get ports -w. So I have kept this in watch mode. Okay, and let me open. Okay, so let me keep this side by side. Okay, and let me make my changes again in my deployment. Okay, So this time again from HTTPD, I want to change Nginx because without the container specification, the rollout will not happen, right? So let me change from Nginx to, sorry, from HTTPD to Nginx, okay? And now let me try to use kubectl apply -f and then deployment HTML. See what is happening over here. Okay, pending containers are being created means, see the previous three containers. Okay, if you see this, okay, earlier three containers were running, okay, and then one container is in pending state, okay, container creating, one new container has been created, and then one old container has been deleted. Okay, again one new container has been created, okay, this is done, and then one old container has been terminated. Okay, so what was happening? So it was doing the rolling update, so it was deleting one and creating one, and then again it was deleting one, creating one. So this is what we can see in when we try to see by using watch command. So what was happening? It was deleting the previous pods and trying to create a new one. So it was not deleting all the new pods at the same point of time, but it was making changes slowly. Okay, now if you do this, for example, one more way to check this, kubectl describe deployment okay, here also if you see this, scale down, scale up, scale down, scale up, scale down, scale up. Okay, so this is what happening in the rolling updates. Okay, so or else let me show you something else, since we have created our replica sets as well, right? So we kubectl get rs, okay, hyphen go, sorry, hyphen w. Okay, I have kept this my replica sets in watch mode. So this was our previous replica set, which has been overridden with the help of the new replica set. Okay, so now let me again make some changes in my deployment. Okay, let me again deploy this to my previous form, deployment.yaml. Okay, so let me make this change from Nginx to HTTP. Okay, and now let me try to apply my changes. Okay, so we have kubectl apply, right? So kubectl apply and then deployment.yaml. See what is happening here. See, and replica set as well. So we can see that the older replica sets are being getting deleted and the newer one will get created. Okay, so this is how the change is happening when we are using rolling update. So it will delete one and it will create one. Okay, and this is how we can create our deployments. Now if suppose, if you'll see this kubectl rollout history deployment slash deployment, okay, here we can see there are 4 revisions as of now, 1 2 3 4. Okay, but here we are unable to see any of the changes, means I mean there is no message. I don't want this to be none, so what can we do? So basically this block is available for any custom message, means I want to make sure to write any message at my deployment. So with the help of the deployment I will understand, similar to what we have seen in git commits, right? So we used to pass some message, right? So we need to pass any message. Okay, so how to do that? So let me check. Okay. Okay, here if you see this revision, no change. Okay, so one way to do is -f1 record equal to true. This is what I can make. So let me use this command. kubectl apply -f deployment.yaml -f equal to true. What happened? There has been some change. Now if I'll check the history, now we can see the whatever we have executed that has been recorded. But even this is not something what I was looking for, but I just wanted to see how we can get the custom message. So basically what I need to do is I need to make changes in my deployment file. Okay, and here we have something called annotations under metadata of my replica set. Okay, so let me check this. So under labels we have something called annotations. Okay, so let me copy. Okay, for example, this will be HTTPD deployment, right? So I just want to change the name, HTTPD deployment. Okay, now let me save this, and now let me try to apply. Sorry, I don't want to record true this time because this is not required since I have passed my annotations. Okay, if I'll hit enter, so and if I'll do kubectl history or rollout history, then I can see that custom message has been defined over here. Okay, now same thing. I want to make change my deployment to Nginx, and I want to change the message as well. Okay, vi deployment.yaml. This time this deployment will be for Nginx. So the reason why we are trying to deploy, we need to write here. It can be any custom message. Okay, and the image I want to change it to Nginx because as I have said, unless and until we are changing the container specifications, a new rollout will not get created. That's the reason we were able to see the number of revisions were 4 only. Okay, now if I try to use apply, okay, now if I try to use the rollout history, then we can see 5. Okay, so we have 4 and we have 5 deployments. Okay, so this is how we can create the deployment, and this is how we need to pass any custom message to our deployments. Okay, understood? Guys, if you have any questions, then let me know. Do not be silent or do not feel something. Okay, so if you have anything, then let me know whether that is a kind of silly doubt or anything. Okay. Okay, now my requirement is the moment I have deployed this to Nginx, so this is not working as expected. For example, kubectl describe deployment post deployment. What happened is, if you see here, the image is Nginx. Okay, and here we can see all type of events which has been happened on our deployments. Okay, so this was our old replica, and this is our new replica. So if you check the status, for example, kubectl get rs, see this was our old replica. For F4, F5, right? So here F4, F5. Okay, that is 0 by 0, and a new replica set with new ports has been created. Okay, so here if you see this, the image is Nginx. So now my requirement is, instead of using Nginx, I just want to roll back to the previous version. So I have realized, okay, so whatever the deployment I have did, that is wrong and that is not working as expected. So in this case, I want to deploy it to the previous version. So what I can do, I need to check the history. Okay, so which version you want to change, whether version 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Okay, so in my case, I just want to change this to deployment or the revision number 4. Okay, so how can we do that? So we have command for that as well. Okay, so we can use the kubectl rollout command. Okay, kubectl rollout, undo, and then -2 revision to which particular revision number. So in my case, I want to change this to revision 4, and the type is deployment, and the name of the deployment. Name of the deployment is first deployment, right? So first deployment. If I hit enter, then we can see we have one rollback status. Okay. Now if I'll do the history, see what will happen. Rollout history. Sixth one, HTTP deployment again means this fourth one has been replicated to sixth one again. Okay. Now if you describe this kubectl, describe deployment and then deployment name. Okay, here if I scroll up, then we can see the image name as HTTPD. Okay, so this is how we can deploy or undo the changes to the previous versions as well. Okay, so this generally we called as rollout undo. Okay, so if you want to move to any other specific revisions, then we can use rollout command. Okay, so that's the reason why the revisions were getting created. So whenever we perform any deployment or any rollout is been carrying out, a revision will get created so that we can get back to the previous changes as well. Okay, now we have seen the default deployment strategy, right? So let us see the one more deployment strategy, that is recreate. Okay, so okay, this is our deployment. Okay, and before doing that, so let me check max unavailability and max search in deployment. Okay, so here if you see this, if you see the deployment, whatever we have created, we can see something called 25% max unavailable, 25% max search. So what do you mean by this? Why are these options required? So what is the benefit in while doing deployments with the help of these two columns? I mean 25% max and 25% search. And remember one thing, if we are not specifying any values, by default it will assume as 25%. Okay, so this is the default value which has been assigned to our deployment. Okay, if you are not providing anything, then this will be the default value what we can see for max unavailable and 25% max search. Okay, since I haven't updated anything, we are able to see as 25% and 25%. What do you mean by 25%? For example, if we have 10 pods, okay, if you have 10 replicas which needs to be get created, so 10 replicas, what will be the 25% for the 10 replicas? 5 will be 50 and around 2.53 will be our 25%, right? So means if suppose we have 20 pods, for example, we have 20 pods. Okay, 50% means 10 pods and 25% means 5 pods. Okay, so this is how it will be calculating in terms of percentage. So what will happen is max unavailability and max search means whenever we are trying to create the update or the deployment, right? So how many containers it needs to bring down. Unavailability means whenever we are carrying out one deployment, okay, so how many should not be available to the user so that it will create a new one. If suppose if we have 20 as our desired state, for example 20 as my total replicas, okay, so what will happen is 5 containers, or sorry, 5 pods will not be available. 15 will be available, and the 5 will get deleted and new 5 will get created. Okay, and then again it will bring down 5 containers, 5 pods, and then it will create new 5 pods. Means the total number of pods that will not be able to access by the user, means which are not available to the cluster. Okay, that will be considered as max unavailable, whereas 25% max set means if suppose our total is 10%, so it will create 15 pods at a time. Means, sorry, not 15 points, the total number of pods will be 15. Okay, so that's how it will calculate. So let us see how can we execute them, okay, and where can we pass them. Okay, here if you see this, okay, max unavailable means the number of unavailable pods at the time of update. Okay, if you configure max unavailable as 1, then it will create one new and delete one. Okay, that's what was happening in our deployments, right? So if 5 has value, then create 5 and delete 5. Okay, this will help us to complete the deployment faster. Basically, this will help us to complete our deployment faster. Okay, and max search, basically this will imply the number of pods that will be there on top of total replicas being mentioned. For example, here if you see this example, if the replicas in the deployment is mentioned as 3, when rolling update will kick in, this property will define how many extra pods will be created at the point of time. Means if suppose I'm configuring as 2 as my max search, then already there were 3 and it will create total new 2 containers. I mean, it will create 2 new and the total will be again 12. Okay, so that will be the what we call, I mean, that's how it will consider. So basically, if I am passing as 2, then the total number will be plus 2 to the existing replicas. Okay, so we'll try to see this, then we'll get some clarity on this. Okay, so if I copy this deployment, and let me remove this. So minimum readiness. So here we have one more option. Okay, this will be asked in interviews, guys. What is minimum readiness? What is 25% max unavailable and 25% max search? Okay, so minimum readiness means this will take at least 30 seconds to start a new container. Okay, so this will be the time what we are going to mention. Okay, and whereas for the strategy, so here I am trying to configure rolling update, whether it is recreate or rolling update. So under the strategy path, and then max search equal to 2. 2 extra pods means replicas 6 and max search 2, then it will be 8 pods. Okay. Max unavailable 1 means 1 pod will create and get deleted. Okay. So let me remove this because this will throw errors, right? So I just wanted to uncomment them. Okay, let me copy my deployment. So where is my deployment now? pi deployment.yaml. Okay, so I have deleted the existing deployment. Okay, I did a new deployment with some specific changes, means strategy and the max search, max unavailable, and minimum ready status. Okay, so if I'll save this, okay, and let me put this on watch. kubectl reports -w. Okay, so this is something related to what existing deployment. Okay, so here we were having 3 ports, right? No, let me check replica set. Okay, 3 by 3, right? So let us see this. So if I execute kubectl apply -f deployment.yaml. Let's see what is happening here. Replicas, total number of replicas, I was asking for 6, right? Okay, so here we can see one new replica has been created as 6. The current state is 3 and ready are 3 only, means 3 has been deleted based upon our deployment. Unavailable is 1, right? The minimum ready status is 30 seconds. kubectl get pods. Two, three, four, five, six. Here, if you see the number of pods which are available is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 pods. Why? Because I was asking the max surge as 2, means 2 pods should be extra. Always it should make sure that if my replicas are 6, then if I'm passing as max surge as 2, then the total number of pods will be 8. And later on, as all the 6 will get created, then these 2 will get deleted. Okay, so max unavailable means it is replacing one by one, only one pod at a time, and it is creating one pod at a time. So that's what we can see in the pod status as well. Again, if you see this -w, let me clear the screen. Okay, now the total number of deployments are 6 only. Okay, so this is what it will happen when we are trying to use max surge and max unavailability and minimum ready seconds. It will take at least 30 seconds to create a new container. Okay, or else what I can do is, let me do one more thing. Let me not use all the 3 options. Okay, so here so let me comment max search. Okay, so we'll work only with max unavailable. Before this, I just want to change the specifications of my container so that one new rollout will happen. Okay. Okay, and the unavailable I will change from 1 to 2. Okay. So we are using only one, that is max unavailable, not max set. I have commented that. Okay, so okay, so if I try to apply this, apply deployment. Now if I try to check this, see what is happening. 2 pods are being deleted. Okay, means 2 are unavailable and 2 are being getting created, means 2 will get deleted and 2 will get created. So that's how the deployment will get executed. This is to fasten your deployments, I can say. Okay, so after 30 seconds, what will happen? Let us see. See again what happened. See, this has been deleted. Okay, and then again 2 has been terminating. Okay, and 2 are being created. Okay, here if you see kubectl get rs, then we can see 666 means all the 6 has been created. Understood now what is happening when we are using max unavailable, guys? So similar thing, let me make change again. Okay, let me change my deployment. Okay, vi deployment.yaml. So this time, okay, max search will be 3. Okay, unavailable will be 1 only. So now let me again change the specification so that a new deployment should carry out. Okay, so I have made the changes. So kubectl rs-w, let us watch this. So what will happen on here? Okay, And here let me try to execute my YAML. Okay, so kubectl apply -f and then deployment.yaml. So what is happening here? C4. So we need to track 58, right? So 58 3. Okay, so if you'll see here in 58B, this was our old replica set. So it is maintaining three as our count. Okay, and this was our new one. Okay, so here if you see this, our deployment deployment.yaml. So what I have mentioned as max are just 3. So the total number of pods here will be 6 plus 3, that will be 9. And then later on slowly this will get deleted. Okay, and the final result will be 6 only. Okay, so this is what happening when we are trying to use max search. Okay. So what was the deployment strategy? We were using rolling update. If you want to use recreate, then just change the name to recreate. Okay, so let me try to do that as well. Okay, so vi deployment.yaml. So no need to use all this stuff, so let me remove this. Or else let me do one thing. Okay, so let me just use, let me first check kubectl explain deployment -f recursive type less. So here where can I find this my deployment strategy? If I scroll down, here we can see the strategy as rolling update. So this will be for rolling update. Where is for recreate? How many revisions you want to see, that also we can specify in our specifications only. I mean specifications related to your deployments. Okay, so we create. Okay, so here if you see this template here, we can limit the number of particular revisions what you want to see. If you want to see only 15 revisions, then we can use 15. Okay, so here we have this recreate one. So let me copy this. Okay, vi deployment.yaml. And let me paste this. The only thing here will be type equal to recreate, because in recreate everything will get deleted and everything will get created at the same point of time, right? So we don't, I mean there is no use of max search or max unavailability. Okay, because everything will get deleted and it will create a new one. Okay, so if we'll save this, okay, and if I'll check the rs, right, kubectl get pods. Okay, so here we have 6 pods. So if I'll do -w, and now let me try to update this. kubectl apply -f deployment.yaml. kubectl get pods. Deployment configured. Okay, let me change this image then. Maybe this haven't rolled out. Okay, httpd configured. Here you can see all the 6 has been deleted, and then all the 6 are been newly created. See, if you see here 1 2 3 4 5 6, and the remaining has been deleted. So at a time it will delete all 6 and it will create all new 6. So there is no chance of using max surge or max unavailability. Okay, so this is how we can use recreate deployment strategy. Okay, understood? I know it's very hard to remember all this stuff, but we don't have any other option. But you need to again and again watch the video, try to understand, try to read the notes and understand the concept. Then only you will be able to apply them. Okay. जरा देखो आवाज आने आ रहा है किसकी बेहाइश हो गए पूरे ఏదో ఒకటి చెప్పండి నేను కూడా బోర్ అయిపోతున్నా మాట్లాడి ఎస్ నో అర్థమైంది అర్థం కాలేదు కన్ఫ్యూజింగ్ ఉంది కానీ అందరూ ఇది బాగా నేర్చుకున్నారు థమ్స్ అప్ పెట్టాలి అయిపోయింది
అన్నా సింపుల్ వేలో ఎక్స్ప్లెయిన్ చేయండి అసలు ఏమైతుంది లోపల డిప్లాయ్మెంట్
సో బేసికల్లీ డిప్లాయ్మెంట్ అంటే ఏంది టు అప్డేట్ టు రోల్ అవుట్ ఐ మీన్ టు undo the changes or to pause the changes or to resume the changes. Okay, means కొత్తది ఏమైనా డిప్లాయ్మెంట్ వస్తుంది. If you want to deploy a new version of application, in such cases we have one configuration called deployment.yaml in Kubernetes. Okay, so again inside deployments we have two different type of strategies. One is rolling and one is recreate. Okay, so if you are using recreate ఏమైతుంది ఇప్పుడు ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ 6 పాడ్స్ క్రియేట్ అవుతున్నాయి నీ డిప్లాయ్మెంట్లో. ఓకే, 6 పాతవి డిలీట్ అయితే కొత్త వారు క్రియేట్ అవుతాయి. సో దీంట్లో ఏమవుతుంది డిలీట్ అయ్యి క్రియేట్ అయ్యే లోపల ఒక డౌన్ టైం వస్తుంది కదా, అప్లికేషన్ నాట్ అవైలబుల్ ఉంటుంది యూజర్స్కి. Okay, so there might be a downtime when we are using, there might be there will be some minimal downtime when we are using recreate strategy. Okay, so what is happening in recreate, if you see this YAML, so we are using the strategy and type as recreate. So unna 6 pods delete అయిపోతాయి and కొత్త 6 pods create అయిపోతాయి. Okay, delete అయి create అయి మధ్య ఏదైతే గ్యాప్ వస్తుందో that we call as downtime. Application will not be available for the users, right? So this is not something what everyone wants. Ante downtime undakudadu. There should be no downtime for their application. So this is what the business will be asking for. So when they will be asking that there should be no downtime, in that case what you will do, you can go for rolling updates. So this is default update behavior in Kubernetes. Even if you'll specify or if you'll not specify, that is what Kubernetes is going to do. So rolling update lo emaitadi, if suppose you have 6, then 1 will get deleted, 5 will be the older one and 1 will be the newer one, and again 4 will be the older one, 2 will be the newer one, 3 will be the older one, 3 will be the newer one, 2 will be the older one, 4 will be the newer one. So ila vidhanga emaitadi, it will replace the older versions and it will create the new version. So what will happen, there will be no downtime for the users. Okay, Similar
Okay.
to the behavior of Terraform, mutable and immutable architecture. What Terraform was doing, it was deleting and it creating a new one, right? So in Kubernetes also, we can see the same kind of strategy. But again, దీంట్లో ఏముంది మళ్ళీ we have three options. One is minimum readiness in deployments, one is max surge, and one is max unavailable. The three options ఎందుకు యూస్ చేస్తున్నాం again? So minimum readiness ante, for example, if you have used as 30 seconds, then it will take 30 seconds to start a new container. Once one container is deleted, to spin up a new container, it will take 30 seconds to start. Okay. And then max surge equal to 2 means what will happen is, for example, if your deployment is 6 here and your max surge value is 2. So what will happen? It will make sure to maintain 2 pods extra. How? 6 will be older version, 2 will be newer version, and then 4 will be older version, 4 will be newer version, and then 2 will be older version, and 6 will be newer version. So end of the day, it will be 6 only, but it will make sure to have 2 replicas, 2 pods more, and 2 extra pods. Okay, so that value we generally call as max surge. Whereas max unavailable, it will make sure, for example, you have specified as 1 means it will delete 1 and it will create 1. If you are specifying as 6, for example, 6 replicas and 6, so what will happen? 6 will get deleted and 6 will get created. If you are specifying as 2, 2 will get deleted and 2 will be created, means not available. Unavailable means which are not available to the cluster. Okay, so this is what happening in our deployments. So these were the 3 different options available in our deployments. Now again, if you want to create new version, so basically the only thing is there should be some changes in the specifications of the container. Okay, in case container specifications no manam change cheyagunda, if I'm just configuring this as 6, for example, let me show you this as well. Okay, kubectl rollout history HISTORY deployment / first deployment. So we can get the complete detailed history of our deployment. So we have 10 deployments as of now what we have did. Ante 10 సార్లు నేను డిప్లాయ్ చేసిన కొత్త changes చేసి. Okay, so this part, because the revision is nothing but which will have the complete details of our existing version as well as our previous version. Okay, so 10th one is my current version. If you want to cross check, then we can check the deployment file as well. Here you can find the image as HTTPD. Okay, HTTPD. So what is happening? For example, as I said, there should be change in container specifications only. So let me make some change over replicas. Okay, 7. For example, my replicas from 6 I have modified to 7. Okay, so if I'm trying to execute this deployment, kubectl apply -f deployment. Okay, and if I'll do the deployment rollout history, here we can see still 10. Why? Asal deployment rollout configure avaledu, there no revision has been created. So when a revision will get created, only when we make changes in container specifications. Container specifications ante what should be the image and other details of the container. Ikkada change cheste maatrame a new revision will get created. Apart from this, if you are making the changes in labels and all this stuff, then there will be no revisions created. Okay,
Yes, understood.
okay. So and then the default one, I mean, if we haven't mentioned the max unavailable, max surge, minimum ready seconds, and strategy, if not mentioned in deployment, what will happen? The default strategy will be rolling update. The minimum ready seconds will be 0. This will be the default values, and this might be asked in interviews as well. Max surge and max unavailable equal to 25%. Okay, 25% means if there are 100 pods, so that is 100%. So 25 pods will be 25%, right? So that will calculate based upon the total number of pods, and that will try to update. Okay, so this is how we can check our deployments. I think we have covered rollbacks as well. I mean, how to roll back. So here we have something called pause the deployment and resume the deployment. So in this case, what you can do, I mean, you just try to execute this command when you are trying to execute roll deployments. So try to pause and try to execute this. Okay. So what will happen? Basically, it will pause your changes for a specific period of time. Means while executing deployment, we can also pause our deployment as well as resume our deployment. Okay. So try to check this. And then we have very important one, that is resource request. Okay, for example, what do you mean by resource request? So we have two concepts, resource request as well as limit request. Okay, so resource request means any idea? Raja, నువ్వే అడిగినావు దీని గురించి.
అన్నా తెలియదు అన్న.
ర్యామ్ అండ్ సిపియు నువ్వే కదా మొన్న డాకర్ ఉన్నప్పుడు హౌ టు లిమిట్
ఓకే 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 చెక్ చేసుకోవాలి ఎంత.
yes so we have RAM and CPU request. For example, let me try to use my Kubernetes. Okay, so I don't want any deployment, I don't want anything, so let me delete everything. Okay, kubectl delete deployment and then first deployment. So what happened, I have deleted my deployment. So basically kubectl get pods, everything will get deleted. Okay, there will be no RS as well because it was the hierarchy of deployment only, right? So if I'll delete deployment, then it will delete replica sets as well as it will delete the pods. Okay, so now we don't have any deployments, nothing. Okay, so let me just use my cat first.yaml. So this was our basic YAML file to create one pod, right? So let me try to create one pod. kubectl apply -f. Okay, one second, guys. Okay, so kubectl apply -f and then first.yaml. So what happened? kubectl get pods. One pod has been created. If I do -o wide, then we can see this has been scheduled on worker 02. Okay, so now let me try to connect to worker 02. Where is my worker 02? Let me go to instance worker 02 connect. Copy the command. Okay, now let me try to connect to worker 02. Okay, okay, this is done. And if I'll go to root user, this is my worker 02. Okay, so if I'll do docker stats, no container ID. Okay, so basically I'm unable to check the statistics from the worker 02. What I can do, because of, I mean, as of now we are unable to see the docker containers on the Kubernetes cluster. So earlier it was possible, but nowadays that is not working. How to execute this now? Let me do one thing. Kubernetes docker stat. Check container stats running on node machine in Kubernetes. This is something what I have already checked, but here we are unable to do that. So how to check the stats of container from created mask from kubectl. Let me use kubectl. kubectl top ports it seems. So let me check what will be the output. kubectl top ports. Matrix API not available. This is not working. Name size will be default, right? So no need to use this. Top nodes, matrix API not available. Okay, let me do one thing. Okay, let me use Minikube. Okay, in Minikube, I can see this. So this is my Minikube server. Okay, which is already up and running. I think yes. Minikube SSH. Okay, I need to start my Minikube. Okay, hope you can see this. So I'm trying to start my Minikube cluster. In this, I can show you that part. Okay. Okay, so we have our Minikube cluster which is ready. Now if I'll do Minikube dashboard, we have one command in Minikube dashboard. What will happen? Let us see. I'm trying to execute Minikube dashboard, right? So the one dashboard page will get created. Okay, so it will be open automatically. Okay, see one web page has been created, and here we can see what are the different pods which are running on my Minikube. So see here we can see the daemon sets, deployments, jobs, pods. So this is just a GUI of our Minikube. So if you have Minikube in your machines, then execute Minikube dashboard command, and one web page will get created so that we can easily see what is happening. See the error. See here one is running. Okay, and we can see all the different components available in Kubernetes. Okay, so this was my deployment what I have did 3 days ago it seems. Okay, so now we have got our Minikube, right? So let me create one pod. We need to open new terminal. Okay, so kubectl get pods. One pod is been getting created because of the deployment kubectl. Okay, so let me delete everything here. Okay, kubectl delete first deployment. kubectl delete deployment and then first deployment. Okay, now if you see this get pods, so we don't have any pods as of now. Okay, so everything has been deleted. Now this is my basic YAML file what I have created. I mean, which will help me to create one first pod and first container. So let us try to create this. kubectl apply -f and then first pod.yaml. Okay, if you see kubectl get pods, then we can see the details of our pod. Spelling mistake. Okay, so one container is running. So here, whenever I have tried to create any container, I haven't specified any CPU limit. I mean, how much RAM it should use, what should be the core of CPUs it should be using, right? So what is happening? Okay, if I'll do minikube SSH and log into my pod. Okay, I mean, this is my node, right? So if I'll do docker stats, then here I can see let me do one thing. Let me exit from here. Okay, minikube SSH. Let me log in from here. Okay, so if I do docker stats, this many services are running or what? Guys, one second. Let me delete if you have anything. If you get one pod I have created, but I think I have used one more namespace. Nothing is there. If I try to refresh, only one pod is running. Okay. Okay, this is my minikube cluster. Okay, so let me try to clean this up. kubectl, sorry, not kubectl, docker. That's okay. Here, if you see this, see, so the container what I have created with the help of my pod. Okay, I mean my pod. So this is my pod, right? So if you take the details of my pod, kubectl, describe pod, and then pod name, first pod. So if you see this container ID 17F33 313. Even 3F or what? This is my minikube one. kubectl get pods. I'm unable to find my container, my pod. Sorry. Let me check. Docker ps. Yeah, one container is running with Nginx from last 2 minutes, but Docker stats, the container ID. Let me copy this container ID as well. Okay. Okay. Got it. Here, minikube SSH. Let me first log into my Docker minikube cluster. Okay, and then Docker stats, my cluster ID. Sorry, this is my container ID. If I hit enter, then we can see one container with the first pod name has been created. Sorry guys. And the CPU it is using as of now 0.00%, and the memory is 8.44, and the limit which has been scheduled is 7.64. Basically, this limit is something related to my minikube. I mean, to my machine, we have 8 GB of space. I mean, 8 GB of RAM. So whenever I have created any pod, so we haven't mentioned any specifications how much RAM it should use, how much memory it should use. Okay, so that's the reason what happened. Whatever was available, it has been taken each and everything. Okay, it has been automatically assigned to my pod. Means this pod can use up to a limit of 7.64 GB. Okay, so now what will happen? As per the usage, it will increase and it will reach up to 7.64 if it is required. So now we don't want such kind of cases. So what I want to do is I want to tell my Kubernetes that my container should use only 500 MB of RAM, okay, and 500 MB of memory only, or one core of CPU. So in this case, what will happen? So Kubernetes will check. Okay, so basically in Kubernetes, what will check? So for example, if suppose our pod needs 200 MB of RAM, okay, and then scheduler will check on which node the RAM is available. Means I am specifying that my pod requires 100 MB or 200 MB of RAM and one core of CPU. And if I'll execute this, what will happen? So scheduler will check on which particular node there is enough memory where this can be executed, and based upon that only it will schedule the pod. Okay, so this is what we can configure. I mean, under resources, under image only, under resources, under request, we can configure memory and CPU. So it will check based upon this, and it will try to schedule our pod. Okay, so let me copy this. Already we have this, I think. No, there is, we don't have this. Okay, so let me copy this in my pod only. Okay, so this needs to be configured inside the pod details. I mean container details. Okay, so this container or this pod with this container should be using only 100 MB of memory and one core of CPU. Okay, so let me see what we can do. Okay, so if I'll do this, and if I'll create one new pod, kubectl apply -f first pod.yaml. So what happened? One third pod, the name of our pod is third pod. Okay, so if I'll do kubectl get pods, then we can see one third pod has been created. Now if I'll see the container ID kubectl describe pod and then pod name. So if I scroll up, the only reason why I'm using Minikube is because there I am unable to execute that docker stat commands. So even I'm not sure which command we need to use, so I need to check on that. So in order, I mean, instead of wasting our time, what we can do, we can check this on our pod and Minikube. Okay, container ID not yet done, right? So kubectl describe pod if okay, so this is my container ID. So now what I have mentioned, I have limited this to 100 MB of memory and one core of CPU. Okay, here if I see this Minikube SSH and then docker stats and then cache. So what happened? Basically, there is no change. Basically, what I have mentioned is I have just requested my Kubernetes to check if there is any pod. I mean, if there is any node with the specific request, then only it should schedule over there. If there is no space, then this container will not be scheduled over there. Okay. So now what I will do is I will limit my request. So this is what I was requesting my Kubernetes cluster to check. If there is any node with a specific memory available, then it can schedule. But whereas to mention how much this container should be using, then we can check for the limit resources. Okay, so here we have one more concept. Okay, so resource limits. So what we can do, we'll ensure that the container is not using more than the specified RAM and CPU. Okay, means not more than 100 MB. Okay, so I will be using both. Here see request, the memory should be 100 MB and the core of CPUs will be 1, and the limit should be CPU should be 2. Max more than 2 core of CPUs, this cannot be used. Okay, and memory should be 200, means minimum this, and this is the maximum limit what I am specifying. Okay, so if I'll copy this now, okay, if I'll copy this and if I'll try to execute this here, let us see what will happen again. kubectl apply -f hotspot. What happened? This is throwing error because earlier we have used a memory of that, right? So let me delete this kubectl, delete pod, I found my phone out. Okay, now let me create one new pod. Okay, third pod has been created. If I check this description or the container ID, see here we can see the limits what we have configured. We can check this in describe as well. Okay, so if I'm trying to describe my container or my pod, here we can see the request what I have used and the limit what it has been requested. Okay, so if my pod is not having, I mean if my node machine is not having this much of memory or this much of CPU, then what will happen? This will not get executed because scheduler will check there is no node with such specifications and my pod will not be scheduled over there. Okay, so here if I copy this ID, okay, and if I'll go to my Minikube again, okay, and then Docker stats and then ID. See here, if you see this now, the limit is only for 200 MB. Okay, so this is how we can restrict. Earlier it was for 7 GB, right? Because my capacity was of 8 GB of RAM. So now it has been restricted only to 190 MB. I mean, approximate 200 MB. Okay, so this is how we can limit our containers, how much resource it can be used. So if it is 7.60, then beyond 190, it cannot use our resource. Okay, now let me try to do one more thing. Okay, so the request what I'm requesting is of 8 GB and the limit max will be 10 GB, and let us see what will happen. Okay, so before this I need to delete my existing one. So delete power save on all. Okay, so now I have changed the core of CPUs. This is beyond my laptop configuration, so we'll see what will happen. Will created. Okay, so maybe it is more than 8. Okay, so let me create one more pod. So this time instead of third pod, let me make some changes. Okay, so fourth pod and the container name will be my fourth container. Okay, so I have made the changes. Now let me again apply. Let me create one. Let me create F1F and then passport.yaml. Oh my god, this is also created. Let us see. Okay, this is still in pending state. So let me check the third status. So what is happening in the events? kubectl describe describe pod and then pod name, right? So pod and then third name. See what is happening here. So in events, we are seeing some warning failed scheduling because default scheduler 0/1 nodes are available. One insufficient CPU means the capacity what I have requested is beyond the cluster what we are using. I mean, Minikube is of only of 8 GB of memory. So I'm trying to occupy more than that. So what is happening? Scheduler is still waiting. If there will be any node with more than 8 GB of RAM, then it will try to schedule. Or now, if not, then this will be in the pending status only. Okay, so this is what will happen if you configure the CPU request. I mean resources, so limit our CPU and memory and request our CPU and memory. Okay, now if I'll do kubectl get pods, still the status is pending. If you describe this again for fourth pod, what will happen? Same reason we can see kubectl describe pod and then pod name. Fourth /1 nodes are available means we have only one node, right, in Minikube. So there are 0 nodes with such specifications are available. So this will not get scheduled. Okay, so this is how we can use resources and limits. I mean resource request and resource limit in Kubernetes. Okay, so basically this will help us to make sure our containers are running and using only this much amount of memory and CPU. Okay, hope this was okay for you guys. And then we have one more concept called namespaces, but don't worry, I will not be going to cover the namespaces now because I know this is quite hectic. So let us stop this here and then execute, read the document and execute on each and every step. Okay, do not just waste your time. Okay, thank you so much, guys.